Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another movie discussion. This being where I talk about a movie. Obviously, for today's episode, I'm going to be talking about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I will include time codes so you can kind of jump around to different topics that I have labeled out. But first and foremost, I'm going to start off non-spoiler, and then I'm going to make it perfectly clear when I'm going to jump into spoilers. But giving my non-spoiler general thoughts, I thought it was a beautiful and lovely movie with a lot of interesting themes that I feel like they've done a good job of kind of continuing to sit Civil War going into Black Panther and then even into this. And I'll kind of elaborate more on what that theme is without really going into it. But I think it is a heavy movie, obviously, where we start to just everything that kind of happens in between and just how Wakanda responds to so many things happening all at once and how a lot of the characters respond from everything that happens. Obviously, if you've seen even the teaser trailer, obviously, you already know that T'Challa isn't around anymore. Obviously, I will talk about that more later, but what kind of toll that takes on people and what that means for the nation of Wakanda and how that correlates with everything with Namor's people and the larger conversation that's kind of had about both of what the circumstance that have brought both of these great nations, these once hidden nations, Namor's nation still being very much hidden while Wakanda's on the map. It has been ever since the first Black Panther movie when T'Challa made the point to announce themselves fully to the world. Like, Wakanda was known, but they were like a small nation. They were not the technological heavyweight of a country that people know them as now. So it's just, I think this movie hits you with every range of emotions. It hits you with the sad, the funny. There's also so much a lot of action, but I think this movie at its core, and I think it is an element that is very, at least to me, very true to Black Panther, whether it be the first one and even just what Black Panther was in Civil War. It is that heart that it has that I think is so interesting. And this isn't really a spoiler, but I think it's interesting because I went into this movie hearing this notion that this is going to be like a Wakanda-centric movie in the regards of the greater MCU. Yeah, there's little bits here and there, but this is like a Wakanda movie, and this is like a Wakanda and Namor's people movie. I don't, because they're a capital city. I think. Well, it's not, because it's not Atlantis in this iteration of Namor's character. It's is it Talokan? I'm probably butchering that, so I'll probably just to save face, I will just say Namor and his people. But it is just them. They are at the center of this. The MCU itself, it's like, and I think that's interesting too, because like the same thing's applicable to the first Black Panther. It was very like, this is a Wakanda movie, just like this kind of is. Yes, it shares time with Namor's people, but I don't think it loses anything. I think it only enriches, and I think it does a really good job of expanding the MCU as a whole. And I haven't even just said it. Like, I think this is a great and beautiful movie. Like I said, it is fun. It is sad. It is, like I said, it gives you every range of emotions that you would expect this movie to put you through. I teared up quite a few times throughout this movie. I'm also not afraid to admit when I tear up about a movie. I will admit, though, I probably would have gone even harder than the paint if, like, there was only, like, a few people in my theater. I purposely go to, like, I don't like being around a lot of people. I was mainly, like, there was only, like, maybe 2 people in the row of seats I was in, because I prefer it like that. That's just my movie-going experience. Like, if I was home, I probably would have bawled my eyes out. I'm just, like, I'm weird. I don't like being, like, emotional around people. It's a whole thing. I'm going in it on a tangent, but I'm saying like, I think if I rewatch this movie at home, it probably still would hit me, because I think even when I've watched stuff that I know what's coming, I think that raw emotion can still hit just as hard, even knowing it's coming, because you know it's coming, and it makes every build up to it that much more, because the build up's with you, because you're like, all right, I know all these events are leading to this thing. So I'm going to stop talking in circles, but like in general, those are my thoughts. I think this is a lovely movie, and I'm so excited to see what this movie means for Wakanda going forward, just the MCU as a whole, as a lot has changed for Wakanda at the end of this movie, and we'll kind of leave it at that. So that is the non-spoiler element of it. Now I will go ahead and warn you, I am moving into spoilers. But obviously starting on such a somber note in the movie, just making, and obviously the question was how they were going to do the situation with T'Challa, and it turns out how they approached it is that T'Challa was sick. And I think that does a lot to Shuri, and she even brings up these moments later on where it's like, right, she is the gifted genius of Wakanda, and it's like, I have these smarts, I have these skills, and yet even given what I've been given, I couldn't help my brother. This is something medical, like something I should be able to do, something like science, I should be able to do it, and I couldn't save my brother, and that makes her internalize so much, and I think it's such an interesting situation and place that it puts Shuri, because Shuri's mom believes in the ancestral plane, because obviously she's never been there, but for her it's more so, and I think it creates this really interesting science versus faith situation, because she doesn't have the faith, she has the science, and losing her brother made her like withdraw into her science. It's like, I think for her it's like the science is what she knows, it's what she understands. Everything else about the world is like, it doesn't make any sense since I couldn't even save my own brother, since I've lost my brother, you know, like her brother, like her best friend, and it's just like, it shattered her world, and it shattered everyone's world. I mean, Ramonda having to be in a situation where she had to lead a broken nation after losing its king. And not only did your nation lose its king, you lost your son after you've already lost your husband before that. It's like, I mean, and she was also like, I mean, we didn't really get an answer of it, but I'm assuming she took control in that 5-year blip period, and then just to have T'Challa return to you just to lose him again, you know? And that has to be heartbreaking, you know? Especially in that regard, and especially that opening where it's like, right, here are some people coming to try and take vibranium, and Wakanda has to fight back. They're in front of all these nations. It's like, right, we're not selfish that we would never share vibranium, like we won't give it to the world. It's that we don't, it's not that we don't trust vibranium out there, it's that we don't trust you, because the fact is these people snuck into our country to try and steal vibranium from us. Like, and that's the thing, once again, and making that beautiful and powerful point of, you're coming after us because you think because our king is gone that we are weak, that you can take advantage of us, you know? And that is how the world views Wakanda now. It's like, oh, Wakanda's without its Black Panther, it's without its king, it's for the world's picking. And I love that theme being sprinkled through, it's not just an element just allocated to Wakanda. It is so applicable to Namor and his people, but generally, I mean, look at history. That has always been the situation of, like, you know, that's how empires and kingdoms have fallen, because it's like, oh, you're weak, let's take advantage of this situation now. I mean, it makes the most strategic from a conquering standpoint. You take advantage when a country that has stayed so strong, has proven itself to be so strong, seems weak. You're going to take advantage of that. But it's like, just because we don't have our king, just because we don't have a Black Panther, don't get it twisted. They still have Dora Milaje, and the fact is they still have Queen Ramonda, like, leading the charge. But once again, having to piece that all together, and once again having those conversations with her daughter where she feels T'Challa and everything, the wind and everything, she feels him there. But for sure, it's like, I don't understand what you're like. My brother's gone, and to me, this ties in beautifully with that line from What If, from T'Challa. It's the last line. It's actually the last T'Challa. It's the last line of the zombie episode from T'Challa, where he was basically, when people are gone, they're never truly gone. As long as we exist to remember them, they will never be gone. And that's all that resonated through my mind while Shuri was having those talk with her mom. It's like, your brother is never gone. He is always with you as long as you remember him. And jumping ahead a little bit on a lot, but like that scene and having that conversation nearing the beginning of the movie and having that moment at the very end, she's there by herself and tears streaming down her eyes thinking about her brother, because in that moment she felt him and she felt what her mom was trying to explain to her, because she felt so disconnected from it. Because T'Challa, because he was a Black Panther, he's seen the ancestral plane, and Shuri's more so like a I need to see it to believe it person, because it's just like, for her, it just seems like ethereal nonsense, because science is something she can hold, it's something she can grasp, it's something she can understand, and believing in something where it's just like you've never seen it yourself, it's hard for her to believe, because she doesn't want to get her hopes up and believe, because it's like, no, death is death, there's no coming back from that. We were lucky with the blip, but it's like, my brother, there's no coming back for him. Like, once again, it's like, it wasn't magic. He wasn't struck down in battle. He died of an illness that I couldn't fix, and I should have been able to. And that regret and that pain really drags down on her throughout the entire movie. I mean, once again, finding out what we find out about Nakia, who's been gone from Wakanda for 6 years. So the 5 years when T'Challa was gone, where a lot of Wakanda was probably going, when a lot of the universe was going, she left Wakanda and she settled in Haiti. And the fact is, she stayed an extra year because she never actually went to T'Challa's funeral, because for her, it's like, it felt so finite. Me going there felt like I was admitting, like, it felt like he was completely gone if I went, which, it's just like, right, you are Wakandan always, and do you really believe that anyone that's gone is ever fully gone? They are always with us. And the fact is, she had to remind Nakia that, and she had to try and get that across to Shuri as well. And so that's this interesting dilemma that Wakanda finds itself in this situation, especially in conjunction with Namor and his people, because basically they have vibranium. They have like one of the other large sources of vibranium, and some military ended up stumbling across it. Like, it was like a joint operation, like, by the U.S. government and like some CIA agents, which I believe they were CIA agents. Which one of them was Lake Bell? I saw her at the red carpet. I was like, wait, is she in this movie? I was like, maybe not, because I didn't see anything. Did not realize she was, which, if you've seen What If, it's pretty dope, because Lake Bell, she voices Black Widow in the she voices Black Widow in the What Ifs, which I think is kind of pretty dope too, just to be able to get her in the mainline MCU. I'm pretty sure her character died at the beginning of the movie, but still, that's pretty dope. But also just interesting parallel with another actor who's in both DC and Marvel, because if you're unaware, Lake Bell voices Poison Ivy in the Harley Quinn cartoon. So just kind of interesting. I was like, because like I said, I remember seeing her at the red carpet. I was like, oh, that's Lake Bell, that's cool. Had no idea she was in the movie, even if it's just that small amount. But I love that initial thought of like, okay, we're trying to get vibranium. Who could be trying to stop us? It has to be Wakanda. And I think that's so interesting too, that, and maybe they have very specific soldiers for it, because they never used it later on. Like, well, the Namor's people have, I guess, like this almost, I don't know if it's technology or whether some have this unique ability, but they have like a bit of a siren song, basically drawing people to their deaths. Can they do it twice in the movie, but then it kind of gets disrupted? So I wonder, is there only a select few of them that can actually do it? It's not like they have like a large army that has that ability. I thought that was such an interesting thing. Like, obviously, like, I couldn't help but draw parallels to like Sirens, when the way they were just making people jump off ship. Once again, they did it 2 sections in the movie, but also our introduction to Namor, which I didn't know. Like, I saw the winged feet, but I didn't think much of it in the trailer. Well, I never saw the official trailer, only saw the teaser. That's all I wanted to see. That's all I needed to see. But I didn't realize he could actually fly. I even love the notion of, hey, I'm a mutant. And obviously, once again, we're just creeping that in little by little. And even, because in the comics, he is the first mutant. And it seems like he might be, at the very least in this, because we find out that the thing that made him what he is, what made his people what they are, is it makes it so he ages extremely slowly, because he's like 500 plus years old at this point in time. And obviously he was human before him, but his mom took what is essentially was a plant that was grown from like because it was embedded in like a rock or whatever, but it was imbued with like, it grew from like vibranium. So very much like a very neat equivalency to the same kind of a similar thing with how the Purple Heart flower that gives the Black Panther their power. So I thought that was kind of a neat parallel, but also showing how he came to be. And it's going to be interesting how they handle the whole mutant thing going forward. Will it just be like a certain, because they are setting it up to be the genetic thing it is, and maybe he just happened to have this very, very special genetic marker that was activated by said plant. I mean, and obviously, like, you have Kamala and her circumstances, like the Bengals correlated with something that was in her DNA already, and obviously, like, she learned a lot about herself, but her circumstances seem to be purely different. Not just, oh, you're not just from a different dimension. You straight up have, well, because she is like half human and half, Jinn to some extent, So that's a whole thing. But like I said, we are slowly but surely kind of throwing that out there, but it is interesting, kind of, at least for now, setting it up to appear like Namor is the first one, even in the MCU's canon in that regard. But we'll see whether they'll end up being someone even older than him when it came to that circumstances. But his family was escaping, it's like, right, the Spanish flu was, I believe, brought to them, and it's like his people were dying from it, and so was it like an oracle or a shaman was the one that ended up finding the plant and giving it to everyone, and it turned them into what they are now. And I think it is such a neat little detail that every time they're in water, their skin is just their similar skin tone, but the moment they touch air is when touch land is when their skin turns blue. And I thought that was such a neat little detail. And the first time that Namor went to the surface is he witnessed what humans are capable of, what surface dwellers are capable of. They enslave and they kill people. And for him, it's just like in that moment, because he went back because his mom wanted to be buried in the land that they came from. And he came back to bury his mom, and he killed everyone there. And they gave him his name, like, because he took his name Namor from that you are one without love or something like that. And he kind of wears it with, like, he took this, like, name that was kind of pushed upon him because he's a demon. You're the child of Satan. And he took that name and let it be this reminder of, like, yes, I am one with no love. Because I guess it's like he has no heart. He has no sympathy for the surface dweller. He sees them as these, I guess, just kind of a reminder of what pushed his people to go to the sea in the first place, what made them feel like this was the only option as they were kind of going to be wiped out. And now it's like, come back to the surface and this what awaits them, tarnishing the place that his mother wanted to be buried at. So I think that made him even more spiteful towards him. But seeing how surface dwellers operated, who they were, and that's the sad thing, that is the ugly side of humanity, but it doesn't define all of humanity, But I thought it was so interesting that they set it up from the very beginning that he is this vengeful person. And that in itself kind of plays into what I also wanted to talk about, this major theme. This is what I was bringing up, that kind of, it goes from Civil War to Black Panther to the first Black Panther movie to Wakanda Forever, of this theme of revenge and how everyone responds to it. T'Challa was riddled with revenge. He wanted revenge for the men that killed his father, but when given the opportunity, he spared the men that killed his father. Obviously, everything in Killmonger was on the path of revenge and the original Black Panther, and now there is revenge on all sides. Like, obviously, Namor wants revenge on the land dwellers from everything that, he knows that it's only a matter of time if people found out about his people, that every nation would come after him. And that was why he was trying to talk to Shuri, like, we should come together. We are two nations, which every nation in the world, if they found any cracks in the armor, which they already kind of have for Wakanda, they will come for our resources. So let's come together, because I was always waiting for the time. I was preparing my people for the time that the surface dwellers would find out about us and come for our resources. And I knew we would have to wage war. Well, that time is now. I'm waging a war against the entire surface. It's time for them to submit. It's time for them to be crushed, because once they're dealt with, our people can be left in peace. And the same thing for Wakanda. Let us join together as two nations that have hidden away from the world, who the entire world now wants to pick apart and take our resources. Like, let's come together as fellow brethren and sister in this situation, in this call, and like burn this world to the ground, And it's like that way, like, hey, Riri will be returned to you in that way, because it's like, right, she built a machine that can find vibranium, and that's why they want her dead. It's like, we can't take the chance. Yeah, you want to keep her in Wakanda. How do we know that someone won't stroll in and eventually take her back? And it's like, we can't let any other nation have that, because we can't let any other nation find us where we are. But then the sad thing is, Nakia was brought in to retrieve Shuri by any means necessary when Shuri was trying to broach peace. But then bloodshed, and it ends up being this such an interesting and complicated thing, because I don't know, like, it's hard to say, like, everyone was responding in kind, because, this started with Queen Ramonda giving that order to Nakia, but for her, it's like she basically stripped Okoye of her position, because it's like, you want to talk about you've sacrificed everything for Wakanda? I had to watch as when my son was believed to be dead, you joined the usurper of the throne. You stood by him because she is bound by her loyalty to the throne, no matter who sits on it. But it's like, you were here and there, but okay, I let that be. The fact of the matter is, your treacherous husband, you can see him whenever you want to, but me, I've lost everything. My daughter could be alive, could be dead. I don't know. It was your one job to protect her. My husband's gone. My son is gone. Have I not given enough? Have I not given everything? And for her, it's like, you stand before me saying you've given. No, what you have done? I've given you chance after chance. I'm done. And it's just, she's coming from a place of hurt. She's coming from a place of pain that she shouldn't have snapped. And even one of the others were like, other leaders were like, maybe we shouldn't. And she's like, no, because she was hurting, because like, her only baby left in this world, and you failed to protect her. She was lashing out. And that's one of the scenes that made me tear up, and seeing Okoye, like, I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. And obviously, like, she is a mother to them all. And for her, it was like being, scolded by your mother and being banished by your mother, saying like, you failed at what you've done. You failed me before, and I won't tolerate your failure now, because God knows what's going to happen to my daughter. She could be dead now, and that's because of you. Once again, she's in pain. Like, she just lost T'Challa a year ago. Like, at one point in the episode, it was like the year anniversary of his death. These wounds are so fresh. That wound, even if it wasn't the anniversary, it's still such a fresh wound of losing him. And now she's just in a position where she might lose her daughter too. Of course, she's going to lash out. And Okoye didn't deserve that. But it's just like, no one could really, like, it's right, it's the queen. Like, who are we to really fully question her? But everyone understood it was a place of hurt she was coming from, But Ramonda operating the way she did led to bloodshed, and for Namor, it's like, okay, I wanted to end this peacefully, but I let my guard down. I made a mistake trying to think I could work together with Wakanda, but it's like, no, don't even worry about it. We will go to Wakanda, because he even made a point, if Wakanda doesn't stand with us, it will be the first nation that we burn before we burn the rest of the world. And so now it's no, you spill our blood, then I will come for you and cause mass destruction. And because Wakanda has never fought like this before. They've never fought anyone who have the numbers, who have a might that you've never faced before, an unknown enemy, being able to do what they've been able to do, especially Namor, who is super strong, who is fast, was able to take them down, and ultimately led to the death of their queen, who sacrificed her life to save Riri. And to me, I thought that was so, and that's another scene that broke me, when just seeing like, right, she was, a mother saving another mother's child, because what was one of the first things Riri said to her is like, oh, can I contact my mom? There's this look on her face like, right, you have a mom, like, and I, as a mother herself, she knows what it's like to worry about your baby, and it's just like, she wouldn't want to put another mother through that. And that's why she protected, because it's like, right, to everyone in that kingdom, she is mother to all. And she was going, you are under my protection, I will protect you. She saved her, sacrificing her life. That nobleism that we see where T'Challa got it from, because he got it from, those before him. It definitely came from his mother, because how his father ruled versus how he ruled versus how his mom and him are probably like more in sync. And there's almost an interesting parallel with Shuri. It's kind of like a little, because I think it is the thing that T'Challa and Shuri, obviously that's the thing, you carry both your ancestors with you, but also your parents. Like, that's applicable across all the boards. So I think like T'Challa had it within him to be his father, be kind of cutthroat and ruthless when need be, but also like he had the power of forgiveness in him, like his mom. Like, but even Queen Ramonda showed that she could be vengeful if need be. Like, you know, and once again, but she could also be nurturing and protective at the same time, you know? And it's just because Namor didn't think much of it when it's like, right, bury your dead, because in a week we're coming back and I'm crushing all of you. Like, you're either with us or I will crush you. And, you know, and Shuri breaking down upon her mom's death, it's like in that one moment, her entire family's going down. And especially for her who doesn't believe there's an ancestral plane, she just feels like my family's going, they're going forever. There's nothing, there's no afterlife, there's nothing else, there's none of them with me. And that conversation he had with M'Baku, where it's like, oh, like people look at me as like a child. He's like, you have lost too much to be considered a child. I was like, that line was so powerful, because he's like, right, the other, like, other leaders wanted to basically take everyone from Wakanda and move them to like the Jabari nation just to keep the people safe from what was coming. And I even love, who was it when she actually does eventually make the plan, because it was something that the queen, her mother wanted her to try and work on a plant, but I guess she had abandoned it, like, after T'Challa died. Like, I think that's what she probably was working on, but she couldn't quite crack it at the time. And because, right, there was no more, like, her, because Killmonger burned all of them in Black Panther, so they had nothing to heal T'Challa with when the time came, and she wasn't able to crack it in time, and her brother died. And I think that's why she immediately abandoned the project. It's like, who cares? You know, it's like, right, we don't need a Black Panther anymore. She dived into technology. Technology would be her shield, her comfort, her way to close herself off from the world, to close herself off from the pain. And in that moment, she's able to finally make a flower. And what happens? Who does she see? She thinks she's going to see her mother. I was like, oh, is she? But I'm like, the way the camera is, it's not going to be her mom. Did not expect it to be Killmonger. And he's like, no, you wanted to see me. It had to be me. Then why isn't your family? She's like, that's what I wanted to see. He's like, no. What did you really want? She's like, I wanted power, because she wanted revenge. And on some level, she brought forth, on some subconscious level, it showed her who she needed to see. Who was the man that's all about revenge. It's like, your father, he was even calling him like a coward and stuff. It's like, yeah, he would kill his own brother if need be. So if given the opportunity to protect Wakanda, oh, your father would have quickly killed, his solution would have been to kill Riri. Your mother, obviously she did what she did, and she would have not done. And your brother, he was the noble one. He refused to even kill his own father's murderer. So, but it's like, who are you? And even kind of saying that you're just like me, like, you know, because she was blaming him, saying like everything that happened is for you, but for him it's like, no, what I did for Wakanda. He's like, if it wasn't for me, the scientists were a lot more ready and prepared to kind of work on stuff because of me, because of my contribution. So it's like, yeah, like it is. And I think it fit beautifully with this theme of revenge, especially because at that point Shuri was like, especially at the end, it's just like, I didn't see my family. I saw the one person I wouldn't want to see, but he symbolized what was burning in our heart. And I thought that was beautiful. Like the fact that T'Challa is that person. He showed that he was able to rise above revenge, but Shuri was deep down in it. Even M'Baku was like, you don't have to do this. He's like, your mother wouldn't want you to take this route. Because it's like, Namor isn't just a king to his people. He is a god to them, because it's like, yeah, his name basically translates to like the flying serpent god. And it's like, his death won't just be like, oh, one king. It's like, no, it's like you killed their god. This battle between Wakanda and his people will rage forever. It will be a blood feud that will never stop if you do this. But for her, it's like, no, he needs to die. He deserves to die from what he's taken from me, from all the damage that he's caused. He needs to die, and you are going to help me do it. And M'Baku had no choice but to listen to her, you know? And I think it's even powerful, like, what suit did she use when it came to... She didn't take her brother's suit. She didn't take her brother's helmet. She took the one that Killmonger had, and she modified it for herself, but that spoke, like, what path she was down. And I was curious when it was all said and done. I hoped that she'd do the right thing and not, like, follow that path of revenge all the way through, but it came pretty close. the fact is, like, her and Namor, like, that was a and also, I love that shot when they're out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and she's like flipping and cartwheeling on the like side of the ship and knocking. Like, I was like, I loved how that was filmed. I loved how that was executed. I was like, that's so sick, because I think it also shows you how very different she is from her brother. Because yes, T'Challa had, but I feel like we never, I mean, and who knows, we never got an opportunity to see T'Challa necessarily fight like that. Like, obviously we've seen him on the battlefield in Civil War and Infinity War and a little bit in Endgame, and obviously the Black Panther movie itself. But it's like seeing her being able to kind of, like I said, and especially her fight with Namor on the desert, because she's the one that figured out, like, her and Riri working together figured out, right, he has to get back in the water because his skin, if it dries out, that it, like, keeping his skin wet is what kind of keeps his superpowers going. And if you dry him out, he loses strength little by little. And it was a pretty gnarly fight, you know. It's just like, right, his face is cut up. She cut off the, like, she like scratched off like one of the wings of his feet. I also do like that part of her equipment is like the sonic, like, fist things. They kind of remind me of the Fistigons from Runaways. Like, that she has something like that. She had them in the first Black Panther movie, and in that moment, like, she has them equipped to this suit as well. But obviously in the fight against Namor at the very end, she has to drop it. It's also interesting to know, too, that his spear was made from pure vibranium. It's like, it's not like altered. It's not like it's just like, it is pure vibranium itself. That's why he was able to bring the whole damn ship down that she was trying to keep him encapsulated in until they got to the desert where he'd be completely vulnerable. And that, like I said, that it was a knuckle drag out brawl, even with him stabbing her, and so driven by revenge. It's like, because you remember what she told Killmonger. She's like, I will make him, like, basically see me and beg me to, you know, when it's time for me to kill him. Like, destroys this, like, the front part of the staff and just slides herself off of it, and gets to work. And I even love that situation of she because she caused the ship to kind of explode, and that burned his back and dried him out even more. And she was seconds away from killing him, but it was her mom coming to her. Shuri, show him who you are. And given that time, she was like, fine, I'll yield to me, and you will go back to your home, and Wakanda will protect you from any invaders that would come to try and take your vibranium. Like, we can, you know, because even Namor has said, like, this could have gone another way, and it didn't have to. And it's just, I think it is his foolhardiness of just his issues with the surface and forcing Wakanda to bend to that. It's like, right, well, we don't have to kill Riri, but we basically have to kill and crush every other nation, and then the girl can be fun. But it's like, that's not what we're about. That's not what we're going to do. And him giving them no choice, forcing their hands, it's like, he could, like, the queen came to talk to you. Yes, she had sent Nakia in behind your back and stuff, but it was still a thing of, you basically told her to, like, stand down. Like, because if anything happens, he's like, I will come for you and I will kill you, like he did, you know? But I love that. But speaking, like, of that moment, though, when he came to break the glass of, like, the throne room, and he had cracked and he was floating there in front of her, she did not flinch. She stayed her ground and stared him down and saw that he was kind of coming back. That's when she left, trying to protect Riri. So, like I said, I love that theme of revenge, and trying to find another way ended up being, like I said, this thematic theme that has continued across 3 movies when it specifically comes to Black Panther. And it's because it's so easy to give into revenge. I mean, and that's not even just this. I mean, the MCU as a whole has kind of had that element of revenge. Like, what do you do? The heroic thing, the noble thing to do is to let go of that hate. You know, in that moment, Shuri proved who she was. It's like, right, you are not Killmonger, you are you, and what would you do? And your mom believed in you to do the right thing. Some other surprises I thought were really interesting about the movie is Valentina's, like, the moment Julia Louis-Dreyfus was on screen, I was like, oh, Valentina's in this. I had no idea. I knew Ross was in it because he's in the teaser, but I had no idea that Valentina was going to be. That's so interesting. And I don't know if like she's a director of something. I don't know if it's straight up like the director of the CIA, but Ross has to answer to her. Also, that's his ex-wife, so that's interesting. And he was trying to be so discreet with his conversations with Wakanda because he does. It's like, right, I owe them like my life, especially Shuri. Like she helped save me, so like because he sees the kingdom of Wakanda for who they are. He's like, these are good people. Like he was like, how like Wakanda would have every reason, like a nation that powerful to do whatever they want to, but they don't. Like the fact of the matter is, like, would you feel better if a nation like the US, because he knows what the US is capable of. Our history shows what we are capable of, and you give us something as powerful as vibranium. What you know? Because Ross was like, right, let's not rush into this believing the Wakandas did this. Maybe there was a third party at play here. He's like, give me time to figure out. But she knew the entire time. She's like, oh, the moment those beats were at the crime scene, I already tapped those. I was hoping you would pick those up. She's probably like, well, I took it as I guess in case anyone picked them up, maybe she wasn't thinking necessarily Ross, but she knew he had them the entire time. And it's like, oh, and you've proven yourself to be the traitor that you are. And he's like, well, what do you want? You want a country like the US to be the only ones to have vibranium? And she's like, yes. I was like, wow. And so I think that sets up a lot of interesting things because we've slowly seen over the course of things, like obviously she slowly branched down. She's kind of building her squad, everything with Yelena to John Walker, but for her to be like, oh no, I'm in the best interest of this country, you know, screw everything else. Even if we have to take vibranium from Wakanda, we will, you know, it's only a matter of time. And so how this will correlate to the Thunderbolts movie, which she's going to be in, and whether or not we see her pre that or not is going to be interesting. But I found that was so fascinating. Because once again, Ross was there during Wakanda, like during the Black Panther situation in the first movie, and he sees them as a nation that because he feels like it is not a warmongering nation. It is a nation that has this resource that the entire world wants to take from them by force. Sneak into their borders, look at them as if they're weak and try and take it from them. And she's kind of on that same thing. It's like, no, the U.S. wants that. In fact, the U.S. wants us to be the only country with that. Because imagine what we'd be able to do with vibranium if we're the only ones. We continue to be the militaristic powerhouse that we are. And seeing that, like, right, that's her point of view in conjunction with Ross's. Luckily, Okoye breaks him out at the end, but the question then becomes like, where is he going to go? Because, well, I guess like you'd assume maybe Madripoor, because well, we know that's where Sharon was after everything went down. After Civil War, that's where she went. So maybe that's where he'd be. Not less like they welcomed him in Wakanda. So like next time we like pop up in Wakanda, he could be there. I could definitely feel like Thunderbolts might be the next time we see Ross, potentially. In what capacity, I don't know. That feels like that might be the earliest we see him again, potentially. I don't know. Not unless he pop. I'm trying to think of anything else that he could necessarily pop up in. Well, I guess there's always a possibility he could pop up in Ironheart to some extent, maybe. I don't know. Also depends on maybe where Armor Wars falls in the grand scheme of things. Now that it's going from being a Disney Plus show to a full length movie, so maybe he could take part in that. I don't know if he necessarily. I don't think he's going to be in Secret Invasion, but I don't know. Which, speaking of Okoye, I am curious if she backed as the leader of the Dora Milaje, like as a captain or not. Because like. Shuri's not in a position to really restore that because for her, she doesn't take the throne. She's leaving that to someone else to take the throne. And that's where like M'Baku's there at the very end being like, yes, I'm here to challenge for the throne of the king. Because for Shuri, it's just like she wanted her revenge and now it's like she needs time to continue to mourning her family, to mourn that they're gone. Because I think for her, she never fully processed and dealt with everything when losing her brother. Now she has to mourn her mom on top of that. But I think the ending was her way to properly finally give herself, because like she broke down with her mom, but we never got to see like we saw. I don't think she broke down in the beginning. I think her breaking down in the end was kind of like, it's like she held on to it for so long and it's just like the floodgates opened, I think, at the very end. And maybe I'm just not remembering correctly, but I don't think she's the one that could put Okoye back in that position. And I don't know. I mean, because Okoye was a civilian by the time like Shuri like brought her back into the fold. So the question then becomes like, does M'Baku like restore her in that situation and in that environment? So like, or whoever ends up taking up the kingship. She also walked away with some new armor because she was never a fan of the armor that Shuri is making. I forgot what it ultimately was. It called like Midnight Angel or something like that. I forgot what it was. Okoye did not like the name, but it's like, hey, I made you a new spear too. And so her and Michaela Cole's character Anika also wore it as well. I also love because I love this movie, because I talked about it a little earlier, but I didn't nuance it the way I should have. It is a conversation. I'd say like science versus faith. There's also a little bit of the tradition versus non-tradition, because Shuri she's not a traditionalist, and Okoye is, and Aniko isn't, because she uses like the daggers that Shuri had given her, instead of like the traditional spear that the Dora Milaje are supposed to wield. Obviously, I haven't talked about her a lot, brought her up here and there, but there is the whole Riri situation. Once again, understanding where this all started from. Just because something she made in a couple months, she wasn't meaning to sell it to, he wasn't expecting the government to snatch it up, but she's just a very gifted person that like kind of figuring out how things work and stuff is something she got from her dad. He was just kind of like, didn't she say, I think he was just like a mechanic, you know? And the car that they have, which I do love that scene with Okoye, where it's like, Okoye like stabs the spear like through the back seat, and it like stabs into the ground, and like she's driving backwards to hit like the police car that's following them. Because that was also an issue too. It's like, right, the U.S. found out about the princess of a foreign country is here, and what do? You send armed forces. You know, it's like, could have handled that a lot more diplomatic, but that was the whole point. They were trying to use this to take advantage of. You knew that she had snuck into the, they had come into the country, and you thought you'd take advantage of the situation. So that was kind of more on them than it was Okoye and Shuri. But I do love, like, Riri, just kind of like the moment she sees Shuri, it's like, oh my god, because yeah, you're a princess, you're like a modern day princess, so of course, and it's like from one of the biggest nations in the world, so of course she's going to recognize Shuri. But I love the whole thing with Okoye, with the whole, like, she's like talking about the makeup on her head, and it's like, no, it's good, and she's talking about, with that ash makeup, and she's like, oh, and Shuri's laughing at her, she's like, I told you it was an issue, or something like that. I like how smart alecky she is, and but also, like, once again, like, how very smart and gifted she is. Basically, my understanding of it, and maybe this is my complete misunderstanding, it wasn't like, oh, she had Stark Tech to make it, and she built from there. It's like, no, she basically found stuff on YouTube, which I think it's interesting, because it's almost like I guess some of that Stark Tech information, either Tony put it out there for people to do their own things, or just people, like, that information's out there. And she's like, yeah, there's YouTube videos about this stuff, so she's basically been putting together her own armor, obviously like a very neat parallel to Tony's armor that was made in a cave at the beginning of Iron Man. So, and she ends up with her own, working with Shuri, she ends up making a new one, which I was like, oh, I like that. It's not quite the comic book version. It's like probably a prototype version that, and then she'll eventually get the one that she actually gets in, because she doesn't get to keep the Wakanda one. It makes sense. The last thing is you want something made from Wakanda. That technology can't go out there in the world, especially considering the government already has its eyes on Riri and stuff she makes. And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing for her going forward, is having, I guess it's because it's like, yes, Sam has the technology, but it's not like he can replicate the technology that's used for like his wings and stuff. Riri, if she has that suit, obviously that's already been an issue with the government and Iron Man suits. We've already been down that road before, because I think Riri's also supposed to be in Armor Wars, and I think, Rhodey's supposed to be an Ironheart. It might be both, like in both situations might be true, but I really do like that design of that suit. And but once again, it does make sense considering the government already has its eyes on her. That is like, right, you can't take that suit. We're going to leave it here. So I guess her suit is just going to be straight up. Maybe she applies some of what she did, because the suit might be made from vibranium too. So that might be an extra reason not to take it out of the country. Because also Sam's not giving that shield back up, and he's not giving his vibranium wings up. What I also love and thought was kind of an interesting thing, and I was like, I like that things are resolved to some extent, but that Namor is the calculating person that he is, because one of his lieutenants was like, I can't believe you would bend the knee to Wakanda. And for him, it's like, yes, I am for now, because Wakanda, now with its Black Panther, with its, princess as its Black Panther, the fact is, Wakanda is seen as this big powerhouse yet again, and every other nation will see them as a threat and will come after them, and there we will be as allies. So it's like, in his mind, it's like, I got what I wanted in the end. Like, us working together, now they're willing to protect us, and when everyone comes to attack Wakanda, I will be there. So he's still got his dickhead plan. I'm like, no, I'm just going to wait until everyone comes for Wakanda. We'll be there, and together we'll kind of go after the surface world again, but I'll make it seem like it's, I'm there to help Wakanda. So it's still like he's playing like, both sides of the fences of, yes, I'll help Wakanda because, yes, Shuri showed mercy, but it shows like, right, you have no allies in the state of everything because the entire world has eyes on you, has eyes on your resources. So you have no one to turn to but us. So it's like, trust in me. And I like that. I like that it isn't like a clean ending of like, oh, everything's good. It's like, no, Namor still got his machinations, that he's still going to get what he wants in the end. He sees this as a stepping stone to still get what he wants in the end. He just, it's almost like I'm going to make you think it was your idea when in actuality it was my idea the entire time. Almost like a kind of incepted in your brain type of thing, or just rather in this particular case, just taking advantage of the way the circumstances have played out. So like I said, I like that it's not some clear cut, like, yeah, it's a victory. It's a loss for them. It's like, it's a loss for now. We've lost the battle, but the war will be ours in the end. So it's kind of like that, which I think is going to be an interesting setup for Namor. Whether it's a future Black Panther, whether it's something else, whatever Namor pops up in next, it's going to be interesting to see. You would assume it'd be something Black Panther related, but I don't know. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see ultimately how that plays out. I do love that at the end, once again, she goes to Haiti with Nakia. And like I said, just as she's remembering her brother, mourning her brother, she meets Nakia's secret. At first I was like, when they went, I was like, wait, wait, are we going to find out? And it's like, yes, she had a child. She was pregnant with T'Challa's child. Because that was also a thing too, and I thought was so beautiful. Because it's like, right, for T'Challa, like to everyone else, he was a Black Panther. He was the king. But for me, he was everything, And that's why she didn't want to go to the funeral. But it turns out that was actually like raising their child outside of Wakanda because of the pressures of you being the heir to the throne and stuff like that. He didn't want his child to have to go through that. I guess he also wanted his child to have a broader horizon and not, because he didn't want his child to be so disconnected that he ended up having like a Killmonger situation happen. But it was more so, I think, like, right, the pressures of the kingdom and stuff like that, the expectations, my child is free of that. But also I want my child to remember but having Nakia there to be the person raising him, being as strong as she is, And it turns out the queen, I guess in scenes we didn't get to see, the queen met with her grandson before she died, so she knows he exists. And the fact is, his name is something in Haitian, but his true name is T'Challa. And I was like, that is beautiful. So they're probably, because obviously the question was like, well, okay, so going forward, they're not recasting now. Will they recast it now? Will they do it in the future? And to me, this is them saying, no, we're never recasting T'Challa because T'Challa is gone, but he lives on through his son. His son will carry on that spirit. And that's how you keep T'Challa alive. Like, right, it's his son. That any storylines you're like, man, that's a big thing. I know people wanted T'Challa recast because there's certain stories that character's too important for some people, what it represents. But I think it's almost that beautiful thing of the passing of the torch in the regard of this is T'Challa's son. He maintains all of who T'Challa was, and it keeps his spirit alive. And I think that I wasn't even expecting them to go down that route at all. I wasn't expecting that, but I think it's so interesting that they decided to choose this route to that answer. So there is no recasting of T'Challa going forward. Any future T'Challa in this universe, we're not doing a multiverse thing. It will be T'Challa's son that will eventually grow up, inherit the throne, and eventually inherit the mantle. I'm curious, will they, because I guess this could, especially because they're putting together the Young Avengers. Obviously, he's on the super young side, but you would think maybe at some point down the line he could, once again, it just depends on, what the future of the MCU looks like. So I think that's such an interesting, just kind of an element to it. So I thought that was just kind of a neat, kind of answer to the question so many people had about that. And I don't know if people who say recast T'Challa, whether that is satisfactory for them. They probably feel no, I would, once again, I understand both sides of it. And even I'm not sure where I necessarily fall in that regard. I've always seen both sides of that argument. But that's, I like the answer they gave. Once again, how the general public's going to respond to that, I don't know, but I really liked it. And obviously the movie itself, obviously being a tribute to Chadwick himself, gone but not forgotten. And obviously the silent opening, because I believe they opened when I don't remember if it was on Disney Plus or any re-releases in theaters, but I remember they changed the Black Panther opening credits to the Marvel Studios credits to be that, just like all this stuff with Chadwick. And like I said, those scenes that Shuri remembers, from the first movie with her brother, and just I thought that was beautiful. Obviously, even I don't know, I thought it was a beautiful tribute, and it almost feels like by that, once again, T'Challa, but also, once again, Chadwick. You're always with us. You're never going. Like I said, and just it feels so beautiful considering Shuri's able to kind of come to that. The wind blowing, a tear, and kind of smile on her face, because for her it's I feel you, brother. I feel you, part of the wind. What Mom was trying to tell me early on in the movie, I finally feel it. I know that you aren't going. You are here. Even more so now, it's right, your son carries your spirit. We all carry you forward as long as we remember you, And I think that's just a beautiful conclusion to the movie. So I thought that was really nice. So obviously these are my thoughts. I'm really interested to see what Wakanda looks like going forward. I'm assuming M'Baku is going to be the king. What I thought was interesting too is I thought when it was all said and done, I don't know whether this was just a theory people had going into it or where this came from, but there was a whole conversation of there might be multiple Black Panthers in this. I thought Shuri was going to share the mantle, because that was a theory people had early on, okay, who the Black Panther was going to be. Some people had wondered if Shuri and M'Baku were going to share the mantle, both be the Black Panther. So that could potentially be a thing going forward. Maybe in the future, it's right, maybe not, maybe it's too much for just one person to be the Black Panther, that it needs a whole squad. Because I feel right, out of any, it'd probably be Shuri, Okoye, and M'Baku are probably 3, and maybe Nakia being at least 4 candidates for that whole situation. But I don't know. I should also talk about it too, because I was always curious. I was I'm curious, will we ever know what Ryan Coogler's plan for the original Black Panther 2 was going to be? And he has publicly talked about it. I don't know all the details, but I've heard people talk about it. And basically the theme of it was going to be T'Challa returning to Wakanda. Wakanda had moved on without him. Yes, they followed him into battle, because it's yes, your king came back after 5 years and there's an enemy at the doorstep. We need to go, especially when it's Thanos. This is the big bad of big bads. We need to go to war now. We need to get ready. So yes, you're going to follow your king into battle, but also finding out so much has changed without you around, And I think it would be beautiful, because we know Shuri got snapped as well. So I think it'd be interesting, in that original story, their bond together, what that would have meant, the world had changed so much, had left him behind, and how a king who got left behind in the world, Wakanda, that had to defend itself without him. We kind of got that still in this movie, that yes, Wakanda can still hold its own, but it's also, that time they were without a Black Panther, and they are continuously without a Black Panther again. So there's still, because I'm curious how many of those themes that were in the original movie that would have been in this sequel I mean, in the original script for like how many of those themes are because I think Ryan Coogler like scrapped everything and just started fresh with Wakanda Forever. Like it's a whole new thing. But I am curious, like, because it was always that thing of I was always curious, but I'm like, yeah, I don't, because I was afraid of wanting that information that people would always just compare and contrast the movie we could have gotten versus the movie and I don't want this to be that conversation. I love the movie that we got. I think the movie we got something beautiful and sad and powerful out of something so tragic, a tragic loss, but a reminder that that even those we lost are still with us, and how that tied into this overarching theme of revenge and choosing not to go down that route, not to continue the bloodshed, to find a way to end things, to find some middle ground. Shuri was already trying to find middle ground, but then what happened? She was consumed by revenge. I mean, the same thing is applicable to Namor, because what did he want? He wanted to just crush the up, because this is the forever, like for him it's like, my people have always had a guillotine above our necks ready to come down heavy as hell. We were always waiting for the blade, and he's like, I've been preparing my people for the day that blade has come, and the fact is they eventually found us. That means it's time to make a move, so he has always seen the surface dwellers as a threat, because once again he sees people. Yes, humans, we can be greedy. There have been colonizers who've come and taken and making stuff that is not there. It's happened throughout history. When humans had the potential to be shitty and terrible, humanity will always kind of can and is capable of fitting that. But also humanity can be wondrous and merciful, just like in this particular situation, because for him he saw his people and the Wakandans in the same exact boat. So it's like, right, we should be in this together against everyone else. But for Shuri, it's like, yeah, we should protect our resources, we shouldn't let other countries come stomping on us, but it's like we shouldn't create like a mass bloodshed just to protect what we've got. We can protect it without basically declaring war and trying to kill and burn everything to the ground, so and I thought that was a neat parallel, because even he was like, right, when you were talking to your mom, I heard you said you would burn the world down, and that's all he was asking him to do. Is like, I need your help burning this world down. So but yeah, I kind of went on like a little bit of a tangent there, and I kind of lost the thread of what I was trying to say. My point before I went on all that was just like, I love the movie that we got. It's interesting to know what we got, but it's like, I don't want to live in what ifs. I'm living in what well, yes, I know it's ironic to say that considering there's what ifs, but still, in the regards of the what if animated series and just the comics in general. But I love what we got, and I think it was, like I said, it was... I don't even want to say like, oh, it's a silver lining. I know I said it was something born out of something. It's just, I don't even want to use the term silver lining. It's just taking the hand that was kind of dealt and making the best out of it. And I think doing a beautiful job paying tribute to Chadwick and him as T'Challa. That version of T'Challa, that T'Challa stays forever with Chadwick, and that there will be a new T'Challa that people will grow up with, I think, who will embody that same spirit and nobility, I believe. So, obviously, those are my thoughts. And I think I've run my mouth long enough. I think that's kind of all I really want to talk about. I'm sure there's a lot like I'm missing. I was like, oh, I should talk about this. It's always like that. It's always going to be like that. But yeah, I'm always open to have those spoiler conversations around the internet, because I'll probably watch some and listen to some reviews and spoiler discussions. And I'll probably just, if you want to have some conversations in the comments down below, we can have those conversations and stuff. So, sharing your thoughts about, well, the movie in general, or your thoughts about my thoughts about the movie, whatever that, those thoughts in general might be, so, but, really that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.